Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to be installing the Wunderlich handlebar risers on my BMW 1250 GSA sitting right here behind me. As you can guess, the reason why I'm doing this is because I noticed when I travel long distance on this bike, getting a little pain in between my shoulder blades. And for me, the reach of the stock handle grips is a little too far forward for my height. So with that said, I ordered some handlebar risers from Wunderlich, and we're going to do the installation today. And hopefully this will solve the issue that I'm having. Okay, let's get going. Okay, let's take a look here, going to my workbench. So this is the box that was sent to me from Wunderlich, and we're going to open it up. So you can see here, quick unboxing. Looks like we have some directions on how to do the installation. We'll open that in a minute. Within the box, we have looks like a tie wrap that came along with it. Okay, put that aside. It looks like we have another smaller box, and from the sound of it, it sounds like we have some hardware. So I'm probably expecting some of those bolts to be in this box. And then if we dig down in here, it looks like these are the two handlebar risers. So let's take a quick look. If we can unwrap these handlebar risers and see what we have here. Okay, so that looks like one of them. And if we unwrap this guy here, put that paper on the side, get that out of the way. It looks like this is the other handlebar risers, okay? So these are the two handlebar risers that came in the box. We'll figure out which one goes on the left side of the bike, which one goes on the right side of the bike in a minute. We'll look at the instructions. But just so you can see, these are aluminum, and it looks like and feels like, I mean, from the quality, it feels like this is really good quality. Solid aluminum block, right? That's what it looks like. And here's another one, right? Again, looks like a solid aluminum block. Okay, I'm hearing some real good write-ups on these. I did some research on the internet, on YouTube. You know, there were a few different kinds of, or a few different manufacturer types of handlebar risers for this bike. And for me, I went with this Wunderlich brand because from what I've seen and heard and watched some videos on, you know, this to me seemed like the best brand for myself. So, okay, let's get to the installation. Okay, so we took all of the material out of the boxes and laid them out on the workbench here. So let's just take another quick look at what came in the box for these handlebar risers and also the instructions. So first thing, let's focus on these instructions. I'd say they did a pretty good job. They give good visualization of how to do the installation. You can see here, they list all of the, you know, components or all the bolts that came in the box. And it also points out the torque specifications, right? So 19 Newton meters, so that would probably equal around 14 foot-pounds of torque. It gives us, you know, the size of the torque key, right, that we're going to be using. I believe it's a T40 and T45 for this installation. So I got them right here. And you can see back here, I have my torque wrench already set up. And it's already set up for the 14 foot-pounds per square inch. Okay. Also looking at these instructions, it, you know, numbers them out. So you can see a good number system on them, good visualization on how to do the installation. Okay. One thing to point out is when we tighten these handlebar risers on the bike, this is something that I've seen in other YouTube videos to pay attention to. The front of the handlebar risers, so if we're looking at the the handlebar rises, okay? And this little indentation of each riser is facing the outside of the bike, okay? So if I'm sitting on the bike, this is going to be my left side riser. And again, you can see here for this one, if I'm sitting on the bike, this is going to be my right side handlebar riser. And what this picture is pointing out is that the front of the handlebar risers, you can see there, should be tight against the base of it. And the back part of these handlebar risers, there'll be a little space. So what I would expect is, if I'm looking at this, right, there's going to be a little space underneath the back part, okay? Not on a tilt, but I should be able to see a little space. Okay, wanted to point that out. Also, you can look at these bolts that came with the kit. Some bolts, you can see here, if we kind of line them up, right, the base of the bolt on some of these are shorter or smaller than others, right? And these shorter bolts, right, so these two right here, okay, those two, my understanding is going to go in more in the base part of the handlebar risers, okay, and we'll point that out during the installation. All right, so with that said, let's get started with the installation. Okay, so now walking up to the bike here, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to take off the SW Motec tank bag that I have on here. And for those of you who, may not be aware, SW Motec, they have this quick disconnect and this quick connect mechanism for these tank bags. So, and basically what we need to do is pull this end of the cord back here and we'll slide the bag right off. So I'm going to do that right now. Pull that off, and with one hand, you can see that slides right off. So that's the first thing I need to do. Okay, so now that the tank bag's off, the second thing I did is covered the bike. So I found this is a towel, a shop towel that I use in my garage, and pretty much put this over the bike. So now that when we do work, I'm not going to scratch the paint on the bike, and we should be okay. We should be preventing scratches there. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do in my case is I'm just going to take off the ram mount. So I'll just make it easy. When I take the handlebars off, the less that I have on these handlebars, the better it's going to be. The easier the job is going to go. So that's the next thing I'm going to do is just take the ram mount off the handlebars. Let's do that. Okay, so one thing I want to point out before we start disassembling the original, the manufacturer handlebars, from the handlebar risers that came with the bike, is that it's very important to understand the positioning of the handlebar on these risers, even with the factory risers you see here. What BMW has done from the factory, you can see, is that they've put markers in the front part of these handlebars, right? So you can see here that these handlebars look like they are on a, it's a 0 and 10 degrees, right? So you can see how it's lined up now with these original, handlebar holders on the bike. And it's important to take a picture of this and mark that down, because when we put the new handlebar risers on the bike, we want to position these handlebars basically in the same position that they came with from the bike. And so we're going to use these markings as gauges for how to properly position the handlebars once we put the risers on, okay? So just wanted to point that out. Okay, there's one more thing I want to show you what I did, and the instructions obviously don't say to do this. So I put some painter's tape on these handlebars. And for me, what that's going to do, it's going to mark the center of the handlebars. So when I put these handlebars back with the new handlebar risers, I know they're going to be centered, you know, in position. But in addition to that, I also marked both, you can see here on the tape, and on these top handlebar mount clamps, which we're going to reuse. These will be reused even with the new handlebar risers. This way, when I put everything back together with the handlebar risers, right, I'm going to line up these markings on both sides, and that should basically show me that the bar is centered, and that the angle of the bar is also what it was when I took it off the bike. So just wanted to point that out. Okay, so if we look at the instructions here, I'm now going to move forward with step 1 and step 2. Just to point out, in step 2, the instructions say to remove the original. You know, it looks like they had some wiring harness, you know, straps there. So we're going to remove that and then just move forward with, you know, loosening up the bolts and taking off the top piece of the handlebar mount. Okay, so when loosening up these 4 bolts, that's what we're going to do first. We're going to be using a T45 you know, bit, right? So that's what we're going to be using to loosen up these 4 top bolts. Okay, we're going to do that right now. Okay, so what I did was I pretty much cracked these bolts loose, and now you can see here I can even just unscrew these by hand, right? So now what will happen is this handlebar is going to look to slide back, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these bolts out, and then I'm going to rest the handlebars on the gas tank. Okay, so you can see here that we loosened up and we unscrewed the bolts that came with the bike, the original hardware, and we laid the handlebar down, right? We rested right here on the gas tank. These are the 2 caps, right? The 2 tops that came off. And so the next step for us is to start putting these 38 millimeter Wunderlich handlebar risers on. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so one of the other things to show here is that, you know, you can see here that the bolts that come in the kit, they're pretty much 35 millimeter bolts. However, you'll notice that, and I'll just flip these over for a better visual. You'll notice that some of these bolts have a, you know, the top part of the bolt, the spacer. There's one with a larger spacer, and there's a bolt with a shorter spacer. Now, why does Wunderlich send that out with these risers? Well, let me put these on the side here for a second so we don't. Okay, so what you'll notice is that the handlebar risers, okay, now remember this indentation on the risers, it's on each riser, it's only on one side. That is going to be on the outside of the motorcycle. So this riser here is, if I'm sitting on a bike, this is going to be the the riser on the left side of me, the rider. Okay. Now, again, notice the different sizes for the space on top of these bolts. Well, the bolt, the 35 millimeter bolt with the short top spacer, is going to go in the back part of the riser. And you'll see here, I'll just flip this over so you can see how that looks. The reason for that is that it sits properly in the riser itself, okay? So that's how we're gonna install these, all right? So Just, something to note there. Okay, so back to the bike. You can see here, I put the both handlebar risers on. Again, remember, that little marking is going to be on the outside of the handlebars. All right, the second thing that's important to note in this installation is the bolt with the short spacer on top is going to go here on the inside. So let's do that now. Okay, there's one bolt there. And then we'll start this bolt here as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to repeat this on the other side, and I'll start tightening these bolts down. Okay, so you can see here that we hand tightened the 38 millimeter T45 bolts. You can see here we put both risers on. Okay, that's a look from one side, and we can come around here and we'll show you. There's a look from the other side. All right, so they're both on. The next step now is to tighten all four of these bolts, all four of them, to 19 Newton meters or 14 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, so I have my torque wrench with me. I'm going to do that now, and yeah, well, let's get that going. Okay, so we've just tightened down the four bolts. Again, it was 19 Newton meters or 14 foot-pounds of torque. So the risers are on. Now the next thing to do is to put the handlebar on, and then put the caps on as well. We have the 4 remaining bolts that came with the kit. We'll put that in there hand tight, and then we'll adjust the handlebars so that they are pretty much in a proper riding position. So we're gonna do that right now. Okay, so you can see here I put the caps on, the handlebars on. I tried to line it up in between my tape markings. You can see here, so the handlebars are centered, all right? You can see the offset. So my original thought was the lines would line up, but obviously that's not the case. And again, I understand why now in my thought error, but there is an offset because of the angle of the risers, but that's okay. I'm going to sit on a bike, put these bars in, a riding position for me, and then I'll tighten them up. These are T40s, right? So these 4 bolts here were T40, right? That's going to be the bolt size for those, right? And again, it's the same torque settings, 19 Newton meters, 14 foot-pounds of torque. Yeah, so it looks good so far. And next thing I'm gonna do again is I'm gonna get on the bike, and I'm going to do a final adjustment on the handlebars, and then I'm going to tighten them down. One thing to point out too is, remember before, right, when we saw those markings, well, you can see here, and I know the tape's covering it, but you can see how those markings, everything looks centered, and those markings are still there, right? They're just, they're in different locations because of the angle of these bars now. But again, gonna jump on the bike. I'm going to adjust the handlebars to my riding position, and then I'll torque them down. Okay, everyone, so we installed the handlebar risers. We put the bars on. I jumped on the bike and positioned the handlebars so that they are most comfortable for me. And then I tightened everything down, meaning these 4 bolts. Again, 19 Newton meters is what the instructions call for, or 14 foot-pounds of torque. One of the things to point out again, and what the instructions from Wunderlich says, is that when we tighten the caps down, right, we want to tighten the top of the caps first on both sides before tightening the bottom. The reason for that is you'll notice that, there's a space on the bottom, okay? And we want to tighten the top down so it goes flush to the base here of the riser. And then once that's done, then we start tightening the bottom bolts, all right? So again, tighten them. You're going to tighten the two top ones first, and then the two bottoms, and that's it. So what I'm going to do next is jump on the bike. I'll take it out for a ride, see if the handlebars fit me okay, and if so, I'm going to keep them that way, and if not, I'll just loosen everything up, loosen those 4 bolts up, adjust the handlebars again, and then take the bike out. But from looking at it here, and from me just sitting on the bike, I think it's going to work out fine the way it is. Okay, well, with that said, I just want to thank everyone for joining in on this video. Hopefully this was educational for everyone. If anyone is looking to install the Wunderlich 38mm handlebar risers on their BMW GS or GSA, hopefully this video helps out. And with that said, everyone, have a good day. Bye.